I met a gypsy.
Oh, I love it.
Speaking of blowing things up, when did you blow yourself up?
I blow myself up a few times.
Wait, can we just acknowledge that on the podcast I just said, speaking of blowing things up, when did you blow yourself up? You're the only person I've ever been able to say that to.
It was a stroke of midnight on 2012 into 2013, I think it was. So I'd got a couple of medals, pretty successful career before that. And then my friend and I had a show down at the cricket at Marvel Stadium, or Etihad, whatever it was called back then, a few days later. And I thought, you know what? I'm not going to go out to the pubs tonight or go be with the rowdy scene on New Year's. The boys. Because we will, because I want to stay focused, and I've got a real rubber arm at that point in my life when it came to, I just removed myself
when it
from
came
the situation.
To the boys.
And then a real boy. And then so my missus at the time, one of my close friends, and his missus, we stayed at the farm, and then we ended up drinking too much there, and then we were some subject of fireworks came up, like Sydney having a good fireworks show. We didn't have one, so I said, hang on a minute. And I found
Hold my beer.
I had a pound of black gunpowder in the shed, and I found these old cleaning out an old shed. There used to be used to use like gelignite, dynamite to blow trees and stuff out back in the farming days. And I found a thing of this old box of explosive detonators. So then I put the explosive detonator in the like a pipe bomb, I guess. So you can put whatever you want in there. Black gunpowder works good. And then I made a really big one with but I didn't have any explosive dets left because I used them all the week before. They didn't last long. Pretty hot property. I had a cannon. I used them in the cannon that I built. The cannon was fucking sick. You could shoot trees down with it. Anyway, I used all the debts, and then the only thing I had for primary charge to set it off, or whatever you call it, the first bang, was a acetylene.
The first bang.
I used I just got acetylene because I'd made a lot of acetylene bombs when I was young. I always loved blowing things up, and then I used acetylene, and then I took it up dug this hole in the side of the landing, all nice and safe. And my friend and I put it in there, and then had to drill a earth wire into it because I put acetylene in the top. So to set off, I thought, I'll just put a wire in the top. I'd done stuff like this many, many, many times. Put screw an earth wire to a steel casing, put a wire in the top, then long wire, hide down the other side of the hill, set off it, earth out, set acetylene off, and blow the thing up. And I had to had a base plate on it, I had to drill a earth wire into it, and I was drinking. And
this is like a full thing. That you're just doing on the piss, basically.
Yeah, and
like
I've
there's
learned
a lot going on.
Quick disclaimer here. I never said I was smart.
We've learnt from this, but this is the story.
This is how I can try and educate younger people to not do things when you're drinking, and B, always think. Anyway, and the acetylene's a heavy gas and it sinks. We used to put it down rabbit holes when I was younger, and then do the same thing with the rabbit hole, put a wire down there and blow the rabbit holes up when there's a rabbit problem. Not painting a good picture for myself here, am I?
You live on a farm in Wagga. This is just the reality of it.
It is. You've got to wait till you see thousands of rabbits with myxomatosis, and you'll see that they'd rather be blown up. So
what's myxomatosis?
Oh, it's a disease they brought into Australia to kill the rabbits, eats their eyes out, and then they starve to death. Like, it's brutal.
Fuck.
So it's humane. Do things and not doing it to hurt animals, doing it because you have to do that stuff on a farm. Don't enjoy hurting animals, as a disclaimer.
But even like just the kangaroo problem and pig problem,
you do have to shoot. I raised a kangaroo from the size of like this big, the size of a smaller than a 1 litre milk carton, from bottle fed it 3 times a night to 6 years old until it disappeared. But love animals, but I do have to shoot.
Yeah, being on a farm, you have to do things. Yeah.
Well, you have to do things. Anyway, this thing drilled it in. Back to the story. The brain's going around in circles. The acetylene sunk down out of a crack in the weld that I welded up to get the any of the brushes in the drill. Set it off. I was kneeling on top of it. Bang! I was sitting on top of the landing. Lifted me up, blew me off the land. There's a ramp at 50 foot, and I remember I didn't get knocked out the whole time, but went down, landed on the landing. My leg was pretty blown off, like the whole thing. My chest, I got hundreds of stitches through my chest. I had metal go through this eye. I lost this, so I couldn't see.
Can
and
you see out of it now?
Yep, I got it fixed. I was so lucky. You've got your retina and your cornea. I can't remember which is front one. I should know from my pilot stuff, but a bit of metal went through, missed the front one, important one went through, back one, missed that, and then I got blown like 50 foot away on the ground, and I was bleeding out on the ground, and then my you could see like my femoral was sitting there, artery in my leg was right there, like the whole it was thing was fucked. Looks like that. I lost 90% of my thigh, and then bleeding out. My friend's missus took a shirt off, and we tied it off, and then I got put in the front of the there's no time to call an ambulance at that point. You got to think on your feet. My girlfriend at the time got in the car. I remember I had my leg out the window, and the car was just doing like 180 k's through the main street, like as fast as the car would go through town. Got to the hospital, rang the thing, and I was I was cut, like proper just shrapnel. I was pulling shrapnel out for 5 years later.
Really?
Yeah, you can still see on my leg here, there's black spots everywhere in certain spots. That's still, it's gunpowder under my skin that's stuck everywhere, riddled with just bits of metal. I was pulling big chunks of metal out of my chest, out of everywhere for years later. And I remember I went in, we hit the button on the thing, like the
emergency button, yeah.
And the nurses came out and saw one look and ran back inside. Like everyone was freaked out. I remember the policeman came up and saw me like sitting in the front of the car, and I was screaming at him. I was saying, "Give me your fucking belt," because I was bleeding out. I was like, "Give me your fucking belt," because I was trying to tie it off, and everyone was just freaked out. And then I got in an ambulance and got fixed up. But also like that was a point of, I remember at that point when that happened that I got a weird feeling of, people talk about doing like the drug DMT, and I've never done that and I don't plan on it, but they say that you have like an out of body experience. I remember like I had a brief out of body experience, closed my eyes, saw my family, saw everything that was important, and then kind of boom, I was back. And I think at that point, that's what your brain releases when you die, or when you actually think that you're going to die.
Yeah.
And I think I was at that point where you truly are on the edge of like the other side. And then I was like, fuck, got to fix this shit quick. And then, I was able to get through that. And I kept the whole thing quiet. I remember calling Deegan in hospital, and I kind of told him what happened, told a few people that were really close. And then, because I was like, my career had just blown up at that point in time. And then I felt like such a dickhead afterwards. I was like, fuck, you got to get your shit together. Like, you've just ended your career from being a fucking dickhead, doing something like that you shouldn't have been doing. And I kept it quiet. And I remember Mateus, who was my rockstar, was with those guys back then.
Yeah.
And I remember no one really knew about it. And I remember he was watching me ride at Deegan's one time, because I went back over to Deegan's not long after, because I got the lens removed out of my eye, so I had zero vision in one eye for a long time. I remember I went back over and started riding pretty quick. Like I couldn't walk for a month, and then I walked out of hospital, and then I got straight back on the bike, but I only had one eye, so my depth perception was out. Like you can close an eye and do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But when you've got one eye for a long time.
Yeah.
But I could still hit a 75 ramp because I knew much time it was on the in run. I knew the feel of the ramp. So I just made sure I stood up early and kind of knew what to do. And when I was doing flips, I knew what that feel of the ramp was like. I did everything off feel more than vision. And I remember when Steve was there one day and he came and saw me riding, he saw my leg and he's like, "What the fuck happened to you?" And I kept the whole thing quiet because I didn't want to lose my career. I found out what was important at that point in time.
Yeah.
And I think that gave me a whole lot of drive too. Like it was a couple months, I think it was like 5 or 6 months later. I was a bit of a runner before that. And then I did a marathon after that because it made me want to run and train harder and be better than before, because I kind of nearly had everything taken away from me being a dickhead, I guess. So it made me train harder and be better than I could. Like I was told I would never walk again told I was going to lose my leg and then I'd never walk again. So then it makes you hungrier to do those things. And that was a pretty big moment in my life, I think.
100%, man.
To make, like, it's a good character building exercise and probably wouldn't change it, you know. If I obviously there's a lot of time, a lot of bad low point in my life, but those points are the ones that build you into being a better person,
Yeah.
I guess. And it was good. Yeah. It was just lucky that my friend got a skin graft on his leg as well. He was lucky, I guess, but it's one of those points in
You
life.
probably would have rather take the majority of it though,
Oh
right?
yeah, I was laying on top of it, like kneeling over it. So it was yeah. I remember seeing the thing when it happened. I remember the metal going, the pipe bomb. I remember the whole thing just going, thunk, getting big, and then it just went, and I was like, "Fuck, here we go."
Dude, so you legit just went flying through the air.
Flying, like lifted, flying. It was it was a gnarly thing, but it was one of those. Yeah, I don't know. You learn a lot. They say you learn when you're fighting for your life or you're hungry is a good time. Like how the male human
The
brain,
mind,
the mind
yeah,
works from
yeah.
instincts, and you really take life lessons when you think you're gonna. Yeah.
Have you spoke to Deegan about that point where you were like thought you were about to die? Because he's got a similar kind of story around.
Yeah, I have spoke to him about it a bunch. It's like, yeah, when you get to that point, it's yeah. He was there right the whole way through my recovery. He helped me through.
Crazy, dude.
Yeah, it was gnarly. And then I came back. I had some. Took me a few years. I had a lot of crashes after that at X Games for a couple of years. I crashed out of a lot of events, and I think that's because I was too hungry.
Yeah,
And
too
then
keen.
I just went too fucking hard.
Yep.
And I think you've got to. Yeah, I've learned that over the years. Like it's easy to go too hard. If you want something too much, you won't get it. You've got to let the yeah, sometimes the more you want something,
Yeah,
the worse it is.
yeah, yeah, and you got to want it for the right reason.
Yeah. I just had too much dog in me at that point. Yeah.
Fuck, man, I cannot imagine just that drive to the hospital and that, you know, like
Yeah.
seeing your leg fucking blown off and just blood everywhere, and like that's a war scene, you know.
Yeah, it is. I remember you say things like I said my goodbyes and stuff a little bit
Really?
on the way you do. And that's a pivotal moment in someone's life probably.
Yeah.
And
So
just lucky from that I was able to get through it, and yeah.
so what changed? Like, I don't know, your outlook on life. Like, obviously you knew what was important to you, but
Yeah, know what's important, and then know that like you're not here for long. Things can change quick, so do what you want to do and chase it. Don't give up on shit. Just fucking nothing's kind of promised. You've got to make the most of what you've got. And being, I guess, having I wouldn't call it a disability, but being like you shows you how much like your mind's the most important thing. Having lost most of one leg and not as much strength in one leg, I gained 10,000% in my outlook on life by knowing like you don't. The most important thing's up here than it is everywhere else, I think.
Fuck, that's such a violent experience.
Yeah,
like
but again,
traumatic.
the violent ones are the ones where you learn, where you need to learn what you need to go through to get to. So
see how, remember when I was saying like if the world ends, I'm going to your house.
we'll make a pipe bomb and go together.
That's not what I was getting at. You've got the ability to do a lot of fucking gnarly shit that's gonna get us through. Like you've kind of fucking been to war, you know, like in so many scenarios. Like the
Best Trick honestly feels like a battlefield. Going to those events, it is. It's a war without a purpose. It is a purpose.
But there is an element of, like, there is an element of that.
Yeah.
You know, like
it's a war without the traumatic side of having to go through the experiences that those people do that have to fight for a country, which I wouldn't want to have to do.
If you enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. And to listen to the full 3-hour podcast, search Gypsy Tales in your favorite podcast platform or click the link in the description below. Gypsy Gang.